My baby sister just had a baby and our mom came to help. My sister and her husband live in a tiny apartment with no room for my mom. I agreed to let her stay with me since I live only 8 blocks away. It's walkable. My plan was to Uber her over in the morning and pick her up after work. I only eat one meal a day during the week. Supper. I have coffee for breakfast and some fruit for lunch. On Saturday I treat myself to a good breakfast and Sundays I take the woman I'm dating for brunch. My mother decided that this was unacceptable. She got up early and went through my fridge and freezer to make me breakfast. I told her that I appreciate it but that I do not usually eat breakfast. She said that was stupid. I very clearly communicated to her that she was welcome to eat anything in my home but to please not make me breakfast as it was a waste. She made breakfast the following day. I walked out without eating it. I figured worst case scenario I could eat it for supper. She threw it out since I didn't eat it. I told her once more to please not waste my food. She made breakfast for me the next day. I asked her if she was developing dementia. She is wasting my food for no good reason. I'm not poor or anything but wasting food is a pet peeve of mine. She said I was being ungrateful for her help and she was doing it to be nice since I was letting her stay with me. I explained to her again that I did not need, want, require, or desire breakfast during the week. She said she understood. She made me breakfast the next day. I had had enough. I took her luggage with me when I dropped her off at my sister's home. I told my doorman that my guest was no longer welcome. I got so many messages from her and my sister all day long. Even my dad called me to ask me to change my mind. I said no. He had to drive up and rent an Airbnb close to my sister because my mom was too scared to stay by herself. He's retired so he didn't miss work or anything. My sister came over alone to talk to me. She said I was being a complete ass and that I could afford the food my mom was wasting. I said I could but that I didn't want to. She literally used up 2 months' worth of my food. She made up huge breakfasts that I didn't even eat. I keep all my bacon in individual servings. She thawed out 3 for every breakfast. 1 for her and 2 for me. And I ate 0. My father has asked me to let her back in. I said I would under the condition that she understand that my food is completely off limits to her. She can pay for her own food. I said I would make room in the fridge and freezer for her. She said I was being ridiculous and petty. So my dad is staying neutral but my mom and sister think I'm a jackass. My girlfriend thinks the whole thing is hilarious. Band refuses to get involved. Comment 1. NTA sounds more like your mother was initiating a power play, and that she would have continued wasting your food, which she knew bothered you, but that was the point, until you capitulated. Then she would have won. You throwing her out was inconvenient, so of course you had to be the bad guy. But that shouldn't have been necessary if your mother had been the least bit reasonable. People tend to take the easier route and asking a reasonable person to capitulate is much easier than asking an unreasonable person to be reasonable. Comment 2. 3 unwanted and uneaten breakfasts in, and you couldn't get much clearer. I explained to her again that I did not need, want, require, or desire breakfast during the week. She said she understood. She made me breakfast the next day. Maybe that dementia suspicion should be taken seriously. Comment 3. I know you were most likely just joking when you asked if she had dementia, but do you think that could be a possibility? To continue to cook food she knows you won't eat and knows will be thrown away is disturbing. The fact that your sister thinks you should just let her keep making food to be thrown away is also disturbing. How long was she planning on staying with you? My sister gave birth to my nephew in January and she gave him a name that I dislike, which is Philip. The two of us have always been so close and we always swore we would be honest with each other when asked. That has always been our relationship. We feel it keeps us close and stops hard feelings because if we don't want to hear something we just don't ask. There has never been a time I didn't want her honesty, so I will ask her anything looking for an honest answer. My sister is a little more sensitive, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I get her not asking everything if she feels like it would hurt her feelings. She asked me what I thought of the name because I was the only one who didn't comment about loving the name, according to her. And I'm not saying every single person she meets compliments the name. Just that those in her and her husband's circle did. So 2/3 weeks after my nephew was born, she asked me if I didn't like his name. She said my reaction was very muted and it made her wonder. So I was honest and told her I didn't like the name but reassured her I love my nephew very much. She asked some more questions that I answered honestly, and I was even open about names I would use for my future child when asked. My sister made a joke that it was weird to find a topic we were so opposite on, our taste in names, but she was glad we had talked. I didn't think anything more of it, and then a week and a half ago my sister's husband made a sarcastic remark that he was surprised I would spend money on such a nice gift for my nephew. I ordered a custom blanket for him that has his name on it when I don't even like the name. My sister told him to stop and apologize to me for his reaction. He grumbled and she grumbled back at him. Then he got me alone and told me I had made my sister cry when I told her I disliked my nephew's name. He asked me how I would like it if she said that to me, and I told him I would expect her to be honest if she did dislike the name I pick for my future kids, and I asked her the question. I said we don't lie to each other and it's been that way since we were kids. He said he had no idea what kind of name I would like if I dislike Philip and if I dislike the middle name too, but it takes a special kind of shitty person to tell a new parent they dislike the name they chose for their kid. And he said I broke my sister's heart, which should make me so ashamed. I spoke to my sister after that and apologized for upsetting her. She wanted to know where I learned it but answered herself before she finished the question. She apologized to me and admitted she was upset but that she should have known better than to ask the question, that I didn't go out of my way to give feedback on the name, and she knows herself better than that. She apologized for her husband again and told me not to listen. But then her husband reached out again and told me my sister is trying to spare my feelings. Comment 1, NTA your sister even said it herself. She shouldn't have asked if she didn't want the truth, as that's the relationship you have. You are making an effort to embrace the name, and you've apologized for any hurt feelings. Her husband is being a major R at this point, especially for going behind his wife's back multiple times to attack you. My bet is it was his name's suggestion and he's personally hurt and attacking you for it. If he tries to bring it up again, I would immediately shut him down and say you're not continuing this conversation with him, and if your sister has an issue she can bring it up herself. Comment 2. I'm torn on this one. On one hand, I don't think people should ask questions they don't want the answers to, but on the other hand I do think it's okay to lie about some things, and this would be one of them. Literally the only thing that is achieved by being honest here is to upset your sister. I imagine that's not going to be popular here, because on Reddit, people like to pretend that they all practice radical honesty, but I guess ESH? Comment 3. NTA, purely based on the dynamic of brutal honesty that you share between you. Had it been someone else, then sure, tell a little white lie to keep things sweet. But if you already had a mutual agreement set in stone that you would both be 100% honest and open prior to baby Philip, then you've upheld your end of the bargain. Maybe her husband just doesn't understand this dynamic that you guys have, and you've made it clear that you will love your nephew regardless of his name, so I don't see why it matters to him anyway. My great-grandpa split up his property among all his kids when he retired. When he did this, it was way outside the city limits. My grandmother only had one kid. My dad. And I am her only grandchild. My dad gave me the land. My piece is the biggest. We are also close enough now for city water and power. Some of the land has been sold to developers. My uncle subdivided his portion into acreages. He kept one and gave each of his kids a plot. My cousin has spent 10 years building his dream home. It is up the hill from my cabin. I bought an old one-room schoolhouse and moved it onto my land. I love it. I will retire there someday. But it needs work. My cousin has been bugging me to clear some of my woodlot. It blocks his view of the valley. He chose that lot. I don't know why he would pick a location with an obstructed view. My wife and I live and work in the city. We only go out to the cabin a few times a year. My cousin lives in his home. Him and his kids constantly throw parties there. We go if we are out at the cabin. But mostly we like having the privacy of the woodlot between us. My cousin didn't. He chopped down 10 of the tallest trees between our properties. All of them were on my side of the fence. The missing trees were the first thing I saw when I got out there. I immediately checked my trail cameras. I had video of him and his sons doing it. I went over and asked him WTF? He said the trees were diseased and he did me a favor. I told him I wanted to look at the wood. The trunks were gone and he only had a bunch of the branches. I called a tree guy from the university to come look at the stumps and he told me the trees were fine and that tree theft is a big deal. I told my cousin that he had to do something or I would go to the cops. He said to go ahead. So I did. I also called a lawyer that specializes in tree law. I didn't even know that was a thing. Each tree was worth $50,000. My cousin has gone crazy since he was served. The cops tracked down the trunks. They actually used DNA to identify my logs. The company that bought them agreed to give me the money from the trees and testify against him if I didn't charge them. My uncle and my dad came to talk to me. My cousin doesn't have the money. He would have to sell his house. And if he gets a criminal conviction, it will affect his job. We came to an agreement. My uncle gave me one of his undeveloped lots and some money. I dropped the charges against my cousin. My family is divided. On the one hand, he stole my property. On the other, I took money from my uncle in return for not making my cousin homeless. We planted new trees, but they will take a long time to make up for the old ones. My cousins are furious that I took money that was part of their inheritance, but they are madder at their dumbass brother than they are at me. My dad said that I shouldn't have involved the law in a family dispute. Comment 1. Your relatives committed a crime during a family dispute. Someone steals a car or destroys over $50,000 of property should get the cops called on them. They severely affected your property value for their own. Your dad clearly couldn't think of an alternate effective method of dealing with this and now uselessly hand-wringing what will the family think? Comment 2. NTA. You have made a point that you won't put up with any shit from your cousin. Otherwise he'd have ended up cutting more down when it suited him or doing other things with your property. Comment 3. NTA. Your cousin is the cause of the problems, not you, so tell your family to direct any anger at him for this mess. It's not just trimming a few branches, instead he got what he wanted and made a load of money out of it too. Personally, I would have said I wanted his plot as compensation. He can have another one of your uncles as long as it doesn't share a border with yours. Your cousin hasn't suffered any consequences for his crime as he hasn't been charged, hasn't given anything up, and your uncle has bailed him out. For context, I 21F am currently living with my older brother 31M as he lives near the university I attend. We were always close despite our age gap. He sadly lost his wife 5 years ago in a car accident. They had 3 kids, 11M, 9F, and 6M. Since then, my brother has thrown himself into his work, and part of the reason I wanted to live with him was to help out with my nephews/niece who, due to our ages, are more like younger siblings to me. My brother has never shown any interest in dating again and has told our family many times that he doesn't plan on remarrying or moving on, especially to our mom, who is always trying to set him up with some friend's daughter or another. Right now she is visiting for a few weeks. When my brother came home from work last night, we were sitting around for a bit after the kids went to sleep. My mom started with her usual asking if there was anyone new in his life, which there wasn't, and then moved on to the "I know you still miss her, but it's been so many years, your poor kids are so sad because they doesn't have a mother, don't you think that you should do something about that? Anjali's daughter just got her MBA YAC. And she just went on for a bit. It was very uncomfortable as I could see my brother didn't want to have this conversation again. He got up and excused himself. She turned and asked me what was wrong with him, and I basically told her that she needed to stop acting like such an overbearing harpy and that this is why he hasn't moved back home and she needs to stop pushing this on him. She yelled at me for not thinking of my niece/nephews and wanting him to die alone. I said that at least I was the one thinking about his feelings and not a new wedding to plan. She went upstairs upset, and later my dad also called. I guess she told him what happened and he said that I was very disrespectful and that my mother was just trying to look out for my brother, I should have just stayed out of it, and that she was really hurt. Now I feel bad, because I know she means well. My words may have been unnecessarily harsh, but because living with my brother, I have seen how much he misses and loves my late sister-in-law, and my mother's insistence just seems cruel. My brother tells me how this all bothers him, but he's given up trying to tell our mom. Comment 1. NTA. Mom means well doesn't excuse beating a dead horse. Get on her ass and stay there until she stops. Whatever it takes. Everyone is entitled to choose what is appropriate for themselves and their children. Nobody knows what's best for someone more than themselves on life choice issues. Parents aren't perfect. But most are doing the best that they can. Child Services is available to care for ignored/abused children depending on where in the world they are living. Your neighbor, Harley. Comment 2. NTA. Your brother's life choices are his own. She doesn't care about him or his feelings and you just told her the truth. He needs someone in his corner. It's a good indicator for your dad that when he passes away, if it's before her, that she'll replace him quickly afterwards. I hope he enjoys knowing that in her mind, he's easily replaceable.